Velassimuni. So this is the story of Chitraketu, which is said to be a ancient king from the Vedic scriptures, right? Not to be confused with the astrological South Node K2, but interestingly enough, the astrological influence of K2 is definitely very much so prominent within this dude's life story. So getting to it, right? The story of Chitraketu, found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, tells of a king who, despite his wealth and prosperity, suffered from the lack of a son until he performed a ritual for sage Angarasa, which resulted in a child who was later poisoned by jealous co-wives. The ensuing deep grief led to the king being visited by sages Angirasa and Narada, who help him understand that the soul is eternal and all material relationships are temporary. After a demonstration by the sages where the dead son appeared before them to explain the nature of life and death, Chitraketu accepted the temporary nature of his worldly connections and eventually attained moksha, spiritual enlightenment, right? So that's heavy K2 theme, heavy K2 influence in a nutshell, right? Astrologically, he wanted a son. He was a king, he wanted a son really bad. He was so attached to the idea of having a son, and for so long he couldn't conceive with any one of his wives, you know what I'm saying? So he was starting to get frantic. He was starting to panic. He did some rituals and finally achieved the son and whatnot, right? Everything was good. He met his desire. He had his attachment. Everything was fine and dandy until the other wives, because he had multiple wives and whatnot, they started to get jealous of the wife that he had the son with because he was favoring her, right? He was loving her and showing her more attention and appreciation due to her bringing his son to earth or whatnot, right? So they devised the plan to kill the baby, to poison the baby, right? They poison the baby died. Chitraketu, he spirals into a psychosis, right? He's immediately distraught. He worked so hard to get this son, to have a next in line success and whatever, and not a baby dead, right? Like his life is pretty much ruined or whatnot. He spirals into a deep temporary psychosis, and through a divine miracle of some sort, the baby speaks to him, like, from a divinely spiritual intervention type of moment or whatever. And the baby explains to him, like, this shit that you so deeply attached to, like, this is just flesh and bone. This is just flesh, bone, karma, a movie of some sort. This is not eternal reality. You're so attached to the idea of feeling like you need a son to have some sort of peace, and that's not the truth, brother. You got to reorient and reframe your mind and release this illusion. This is all strong themes of K2, right? And once he was able to accept that message, once he was able to come to that realization, like, he was able to detach and to free himself from his own limited constructs, to turn towards spiritual enlightenment and to detach from confining himself to an illusory state of misery due to him believing how life needs to be and not necessarily being able to meet or have that, right? Strong theme, strong story of K2. And the thing about the K2 influence, it can seem so violent, it can seem so volatile, it can seem so shocking, it can seem so inappropriate or abrupt, but it's really just to free a person from their own clinging, their own attachment, their own false belief, right? Because this is what's needed in order for an individual soul to grow and progress or turn towards enlightenment. Velasi.